In 2012, at the Junior European Championships, Jay Thompson succeeded Lewis Smith, Daniel Keatings and Max Whitlock to become a pommel horse gold medalist. Throughout his career, Jay competed for Team England and Great Britain, winning over 30 medals, both nationally and internationally. A combination of injuries and challenges in the sport led to Jay sharing his experiences publicly during the summer of 2020. Since retiring from gymnastics, he's turned his creative talents to photography and videography to build a very successful business of his own, and this is his story. All right, Jay? That sound right?
That's pretty spot on.
It's great to see you, mate. It really is. Like I said, you're probably, although I grew up with you and you were that generation just below me, and I spent a lot of time with you, your story is one of the stories that I probably don't know as well as I'd say some of my other former teammates. So I'm really excited to do this today. And also, you know, I've not seen you for a few years now. I don't think I've seen you maybe 3-4 years. So to fill in that gap is going to be brilliant. And normally what I would do is I would ask, you know, the guest, just tell me about your life right now. I think today we're actually going to go straight in at the beginning. Okay. And I just want to ask you, like, can you remember starting gymnastics? Because sometimes I feel like when I ask this question, people are actually remembering other people's memories of them starting gymnastics because you're quite often very young. But do you remember starting gymnastics and getting involved with the sport?
I do. I really do, yeah. Mine started, it's like the classic story of too much energy. Like I scared the shit out of my mum. It would hang off things that I shouldn't hang off of. I remember every part of it quite vividly in that it was 2004 Olympics. I was sat down watching it. I think it was at Oldham. Or one of the harms. He was on high bar and he did his one-arm giant, whatever, finished the routine, did his one-arm giant and to dismount and stuff. And I was like, that's so cool. And I was lying on the floor and my nan was like, you could definitely do that. And I was like, you think? And she slung me into a gym class. I was 6.5 at the time. It was just a little club. It was called the Rotunda down in Devon because obviously I used to live in Devon and stuff. And I just kind of mucked about for like 3 months for a little bit, and I was like, this is great fun. Got a call up from my club who I trained at, or where I trained at for the 10 years after that, Exeter Gymnastics Club. They wanted to see, they'd heard about me and another lad, and they wanted us to come and have a little trial. And I remember these things really well in that I went for the trial, was obviously incredibly nervous, so I was like, I didn't know I wanted to do this properly. Like, this is a whole trial to come to a club and like, I think I'm good or whatever. We had to do like lines or whatever. Had a Romanian coach there who was truly terrifying at the time. And yet I didn't do a thing he told me to do. And that was the moment he was like, I like him.
Because you didn't listen, Jay, or like you couldn't do what he was asking you to do, or you just, when he asked you to, you did something else?
Yeah, I just didn't, because I had no real level of understanding of gymnastics. Okay. So I just went to play. Like we'd just play about on the trampolines or whatever at the other gym. So when he asked me to do, I think it was a forward roll. I just ran and did a dive roll. I just ran and went, poof, and just did a massive dive roll. And he was like, that's not what I asked. And I was like, I don't know what you're asking me to do because I don't actually know gymnastics. Yeah. I'm just here I'll just chuck myself about and think I know what to do. And I was like, I remember, you know, going up to mum and dad and I was like, oh my God, that was horrible. And then they were like, and he come up and he was like, we want him. He was like, I didn't do a thing I asked him to do, but we want him. And really? I was like, okay.
And were you quite happy to then like go back? Although you hadn't listened to him, did you enjoy the experience of being in the gym?
I did, yeah. It felt like a place where I was supposed to be. Like I imagined it as a kid. I imagined this big scary environment or whatever. And when I went there, it was a lovely little gym. Like I obviously spent the majority of my childhood there. I loved every second of that gym and being there. And I remember from the get-go, although being nervous and scared, like I wanted to be there because I saw how much better these other gymnasts were than me. And I was like, I want that. I want to do that. And like I naturally like hyper-fixated on becoming like the best in that gym.
If we'd have gone back, Jay, like if we were to go back now, to those early years and would have watched you train, what would we have seen from you? Like, what were you like as an athlete when you were just starting out? Would we have sat back and saw someone that was just not paying attention, not listening? Would we have saw someone that was doing everything to the letter? What would we have seen from you in those early years?
I think as soon as I found my feet within that gym, within about a month of being there, I was very dialed in. I would listen. I had to be coached in a certain way because I didn't understand certain things. But I was a kid who was very fixated on becoming the best, like in that gym or in that scenario, and the pictures I painted in my head. And I remember, like, we always used to tell stories of me learning how to do a handstand, in that I would be at home just constantly learning how to do a handstand so that I could beat everyone at handstand competitions, because I lost one time. And when we used to do the special handstand competitions or whatever, I lost one time. And then for a month, I did nothing but handstands at home. So I could go in and I would win. And I was like the youngest, the smallest. But I made sure that, like, I won everything I could, because I see what winning did for the other people, and I wanted it. I was always really keen to give things a go. I was quite a quiet kid though. I was very, very quiet. Like, not a lot of people knew a lot about me. I was very, very shy. So in terms of that, people thought I was a bit weird, probably, but just because I was so shy. But I just got on with my work, really. I got on with what the coach told me to do. I did everything I was asked, eventually. And as a kid, I think my fundamentals were really good because of that, because I listened really well.
And you talk about that gym, Jay, in Exeter. I actually, I was in the gym at Notts last week, and there was I think it was the Bill Williams Trophy, which is like the under-14s British Championship trophy. And I was going through what teams had won it, and Exeter was on there quite a few times. So just tell us a bit about, you talked about loving that experience of being in that gym. What was that environment like? Were the coaches there of an older generation? And just what was that experience like? Because, it's great when you have an athlete on that's had an amazing experience at a club. What would that environment look like, if we were to see it? Because it obviously worked, because you went on to have a very successful junior career. Yeah. So you obviously felt like, in that environment, you obviously felt comfortable.
It was a very, for me, it felt like a very family-orientated club, and that's exactly what it is, realistically. The owner, Mr. Urich, to me, I consider him like a granddad, like a bonus granddad, because he brought me up. He was, very hands-on personally with me, with everyone, really. Like, he was the granddad of the granddad of the gym that we all gained. And because it was quite a small club, and it was at that time in Devon and in the area in the southwest, it was like the best gym that you could go to. The coaches that I experienced were old school, to be honest. I had the Romanian coach, same as Max Motzi. Okay. For my first few years, he was old school, but it worked. I can't deny it worked. It was harsh. He was never too harsh to me for some reason. I don't know. He saw something in me, and he was quite nice to me, to be honest. But my whole experience of that gym is I'm incredibly comfy. I go back there whenever I want. It is a place I think of incredibly fondly. I put so much work in there, and I don't know, man.
Does it feel like home?
It does, yeah. For me, when I think of gymnastics, I'm not taken away from South Essex, but because I grew up in that gym, my formative years, I was brought up in that place, I can't do anything but think fondly of it. The walls are all so familiar to me. Yeah. Every part of it is it wasn't a gym where it was simple to learn things because of the way it was constructed and stuff, but it made me become a real good problem solver, and a lot of the coaches were problem solvers in how we did things, and we were a unity, a team of people that had to come together, because you had to have rotations of pieces because it was too small to be on one piece at the same time in another group. And I'm incredibly thankful of that gym and my experience there. I've got no complaints, no issues with that gym.
What? You were very isolated down there, Jay. When you're down there, like in Exeter, and I kind of think back to when I first came onto the GB top squad, when that was first put together, and there was an athlete from Scotland, and he would get a flight down, or he'd drive 6 or 7 hours. And I always felt that if you were very far away, it was very difficult because you weren't where the action was taking place. It's a bit like somebody that wants to be in a specific line of work, and you got to be in London. That's where you need to be. That's the heart of things happening. And if you're not there, it's very difficult to make it. Just being in the conversation, the community, and I always felt like if you were a gymnast that was really far away, like down in Devon or coming from Scotland, it was so far in terms of logistically the distance. That was sometimes a negative in terms of, let's say, for instance, I was at Lilleshall all of the time. If there was an opportunity for competitions that would come around, and I'm the first person in the gym, I'm going to get asked first. It's a bit like being on that, that kind of hierarchical list of, email list. You're top of that list. And if you're miles away, does that make sense? Did you?
Yeah.
Was that your experience at times?
It did feel like that. I did feel very isolated because it was only realistically me and another lad who I trained with, Dan Eiley, trained at Loughborough for a little bit. It was primarily only us two in the gym, and I think the hard part about Exeter is that like I'd reached the ceiling, and like you said, like it was quite isolated down there. To get to Lilleshall was like 4.5 hours for me, if not more. I think 5 hours. So yeah, training with different people, and I think as a young gymnast, it's really essential to train with kids better than you, because otherwise you become a little bit complacent, I guess. Mm-hmm. And in terms of selections and even like national coaches, they were very like begrudged almost to come down because it was so far. Like, I would see a national coach maybe once a month, maybe, because it was so far. So I think I did suffer in those aspects, but luckily a lot of my gymnastics did my talking for me. Mm-hmm. So I was quite fortunate in that obviously I'd won a fair amount as a junior, and I was making my way through the ranks at all the competitions that, you know, were known, like London Open, English, British, NDPs, elite grades. So I'd started making a stepping stone to people noticing. And also I feel like it made the Southwest a bit more noticeable. But in saying that, the Southwest had really good like summer camps, or we would have camps in the areas where we go to other gyms, and you would come across other gymnasts and other coaches. So you weren't isolated, but you had like your own kind of pool of gymnasts and clubs that you would go to because you were so far out of the way. Yeah,
and you had to almost like, you were, I guess you came together because of that distance. You had no other choice. You had to kind of work together as coaches as well as athletes, right? Yeah. It wasn't just the athletes that struggled from that distance. It was coaches as well. Because that education for young coaches is super important, isn't it? Like, if you're not in the room to gain that knowledge, like it's hard to go out there, especially when you started, right? Like, YouTube wasn't really a thing. It's not like you could go on YouTube and just see skills. If you've never coached them, you've never seen them yourself, like that's very, very difficult.
Yeah, and that was early doors as well. Like that was 2000. So yeah, none of us were really that well connected. So yeah, like you said, like there were no. Yeah, I guess it was really hard for all of us to learn as a collective, even as a gymnast and a coach. Like, if you don't see it, you don't know how to do it.
What was the impact, Jay, of having like lots of early success, not only on you, but also like the world around you? Because I think that's very difficult to navigate. You know, I was someone that was very, very successful as a junior, and all of a sudden there are lots of people saying, right, he's going to have a great career, he's going to do this, and that can be tough, and it can also change. In my experience, it also impacted my relationships with my family, friends, school, the way school would treat me. I was almost put on a pedestal. How difficult is that to navigate when you're younger and you are getting the success and you're winning English titles and British titles, and you're being tipped to be one of the next kids coming through? Like, how tough is that as a young person? Now looking back, do you look back at that and go, wow, that was a lot to kind of like manage, and that did impact the way in which I kind of interacted with the world and also the way I saw myself as a young gymnast?
Yeah. I mean, I think, I'll be honest here, I think I was quite lucky in that I got humbled a few times. Okay. So I definitely, you know, within Devon and within the Southwest, I pretty much won everything. So I never thought I was, you know, this big bollocks or whatever. I didn't ever think I was quite a humble gymnast anyway, but I always had a feeling, you know, when you're at the medal ceremony or whatever, and you kind of know, you're like, well, it's going to be me. Like, I'm going to be on that. I'm going to be winning that gold medal, no doubt. I got a really humbling moment, the second elite grades, where it changed my perspective on that. So as much as like the level of expectation was quite difficult to deal with, as soon as I got that early humbling when I was, like 9, of me being like, well, I've messed up, but I'm probably still going to win, because I would still win in the Southwest, but elite grade's a bit different, right? I didn't win. And from that moment on, I viewed it differently, where I'm like, there's a possibility I could win, but I'm not going to be cocky about this. I'm not going to be, you know, expecting it. I understand I've got to do well in order for that to happen. So and in terms of the pedestal, I never really thought I was above anyone. I always felt I was equal, and it was an equal playing field, but I just had to do my best to win. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm the best, so I'm going to win regardless of what I do, or I felt like I was on a pedestal, because I was very much removed from those early doors because of myself. And I think a large portion of the way that Exeter was, that it wasn't allowed, like they didn't really allow special treatment to anyone, no matter how good you were, at what level you were at. You know, we were all we were all equals, and that was a message communicated through the most bizarre things, which was leotards.
Right. Okay.
We all had to wear the same leotard. No one could wear a fancy flash leotard because, you know, we're all on the same level.
Was that just in competitions or in training?
I was training.
Okay.
And competitions, to be honest. With Exeter, it was like, you know, I remember the rule because I was like, I don't want to wear a leotard anymore. Why do we all have to wear it? I go to squad and everyone's got these cool leotards on. I'm here in blue and green.
Yeah.
I remember having a conversation. He was like, listen, you're all equal. No matter what leotard you wear, no matter what you do, you're equal. You're not better than someone because you have this leotard. And so I was, I think that lesson in itself helped me a lot in understanding that, you know, no matter how good you are, no matter, you know, if you're way above the next person, you're not better than anyone really in that regard. You're just, I don't know.
What gymnasts were in your age group, Jay?
Niall, heavily Niall, Joe Fox. It was quite a weird mix at a young age.
Yeah.
I can't really remember a lot, to be honest with you. I remember Niall standing out. As a junior, he wasn't really about much.
Yeah.
He was more about like towards the end of junior careers or whatever. Obviously, as we were coming to be older juniors, we had Bryn, Niall, Court, Frank,
James,
Dom. Like it just grew into something that was massive. There was a massive squad of us. So it was quite a competitive field when we got older. Like as we were younger, there was like 4 or 5 of us which were like competing against each other. And then the older we got, the more like the bigger that squad grew, and the more competitive it got. And I think that's obviously why that trajectory was like so strong, is that we had so many of us in a squad that were pushing to move forward and try crazy shit.
What do you put that? Because when you say that squad, like out loud, that is a huge squad, and everybody's gone on to have good careers after that. What do you put that down to, Jay? Like now you've been retired for a few years, like, you know, I've spoke heavily about this with my generation, but you guys are kind of that generation below. What do you put a lot of that down to? You know, when you think about the system, the setup, the national coaches, the clubs, those individual gymnasts, what was that group like?
We were a unit, as far as I'm concerned. We were a proper unit even like, you say the unit of like the bulk of our team that went to most internationals, but like, I think it was just a vast majority of individuals that were pushed to do the same things, that all were a level of talent that could do different things better than the next. So you just pick off of what they could do. And I think it was like a snowball effect, that the better one got, the better the next got. And I think a lot of it was also down to the coaching style and how we did things. Our mindset approach was very different. And I also, obviously you guys, the generation above us, we could see that you were actually doing it, and we were like, okay, it's possible. Like it's actually happening. So like you guys were like almost pulling us along, being like, no, you got to come, we can do this. Yeah. So I think if it wasn't for your generation and all that, it wouldn't have been the same for us, because we wouldn't have been aware that we could have done it. We would have had the coaches like pushing us to believe that we could, but actually seeing it happen and that it was possible, and we had all this success just happening, just constantly. GB was top at like all European levels for such a long time. I think it just gave us that sense of belief that we could. And then obviously, like, you know, Barry Colley, like he was the head national coach at that point. He's good at what he does. There's no denying that. He's a very good coach. He's very, very energetic. I think he got a lot out of me that I didn't know I could do, because of his energy and how he was, who he put me in front of to make it competitive, even in training and stuff. So I think a large portion of the success is obviously to the system. Not always done the right way. Wasn't always done in the best ways or the most kind ways. But it did get the job done. I think that all, you put all that together and you add a mix. You mix it all together and it creates what it did with us, which is a really successful set of juniors that a lot of them have obviously transcended and gone to that senior level, which they're doing phenomenally well from it. Tell
me about that Junior Europeans in 2012, Jay, because I've had Frank talk about it and I've had Niall talk about it, and it's really interesting because they had like a mixture of experiences, but it it sounds like you were so successful, right? That there was a lot going on that maybe wasn't that helpful. What was your experience of that competition? And obviously, you end up becoming a junior European champion on pommel, following Lewis Smith, Dan Keatings, Max Whitlock, who are 3 of the most successful pommel horse workers of all time, let alone just Great Britain. Yeah. Like that in itself, and am I right in thinking you were just 16?
I was 15.
15?
I was 15,
So that's a lot of pressure right on your shoulders to follow those 3 guys, and to have done that at 15 is unbelievable, alongside winning the team gold medal as well. Just tell me a bit about your experience there of that competition and how that impacted you as well, because that's the first big step up, isn't it?
Yeah. It was savage. The whole build up to Junior Euros was savage. I remember it quite fondly though. It was hard work, but it was good, man. Like we obviously had a ton of competitions that just built on that confidence for us. The routine structures that the training that we had in place was madness. It was probably 3 routines. I remember it being 3 routines in the morning, 3 routines in the evening. There was no way that we were going to fail, because we had this pedestal of you guys winning it for X amount of years. Was it 4, 5 years in a row or something like that? It was going to be the 6th year that we could have won it if and when we won it. Brutal. We got put on this random diet. These are the things that I really do remember. We got put on a random diet. We got told we needed to lose weight. I was 15 at this point. I definitely didn't need to lose weight. I was always pegged as it was me or Anthony Wise who were pegged as the ones that were going to go for pommel or whatever. And so this whole build up of the Junior Euros, we were battling it out at every competition. It was never my spot was never secured, because it was me and him. So for me it was quite stressful. The whole build up, I was told that the guaranteed ones were going to be Niall, Frank, Court, and then Bryn was probably going to go, and then the last spot was me and Anthony. I remember that just being horrible, because I was I've got to prove myself at every comp now. And it was just savage. To the last competition, it was the very last international we did, which was a 4-way. And that was the defining moment where they were like, it's you're going. And going to the Junior Euros and actually managing to secure that spot felt to me, because it was the biggest comp that I've ever experienced, felt to me like an Olympic Games at that point. The size of it, the arena, I'd never experienced anything like it before in my life. And I remember being really excited, but the cold sweats that you get just the whole time I was in France, I'm like, oh my god, shit me. But every time I think back to the Euros, I remember it fondly, and I loved every moment of it. It was the most terrifying comp for me by a long shot, but I loved every single moment of it. And the European champion aspect was an expected thing for me. Okay. They were expecting me to win.
Right.
And obviously the added pressure of being in a row.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain how I felt, because I was quietly confident. I kind of knew I could win. And I knew that I just had to do my best job. I knew that I could do my best job. I knew all the things that, my brain would tell me. I knew because we've done so many routines. I'd do a routine at the start, this was competition day. I'd do a cold routine as soon as I get in the gym. Then I'd warm up. Then I'd do another routine. I'd sit down and chill. And then on the 3-minute podium warm up that you get, or you don't get that on a final, but just before you go out, I had to do another routine. So that was my process. I'd do 2 routines before I've even gone out there and presented. So I'm if I can, at this point, I do 5 pommel routines a day. So this is nothing to me. So I go out and I actually qualified in first. No, I didn't qualify in first. I went up first. And I remember being man, that's a shit draw, that. Someone who's expected to win this, and I'm first up on pommel. I was fucking hell. Oh, well, just got to get on with it. I remember, presenting. And I remember hearing and seeing Lewis, and I remember all you lot were just kind of placed right in front of pommel. And I remember presenting, and I just heard, Lewis being come on, Jay. And I was shit. They're all watching. And then I got in my zone. I remember thinking, my way of thinking back then was very specifically, not today. It was a really backwards way of thinking, but I remember in my mind the whole time I'm doing my pommel routine, I'm not today. We're not falling today. Not today. We're going, not today. Just repeating those 2 words, just not today. Not today. Not today. And then finally got to the end. And I remember just being I've done it. I've done everything I can. I couldn't have done that much cleaner if I tried. And the work will prove itself. I remember the whole time, I'm like, I had a floor final pretty much directly after. I remember standing there and I was like, didn't know what to do with myself because I was like, that's the best routine I've done. And Baz come over and he was like, you got to go and get ready for floor, mate. And I was like, oh yeah, shit, sorry. Yeah, go and put my shorts on, whatever. And we're stood there and we're watching as the other gymnasts competing, like 2 of them are falling off and some of them are messed up. And I'm like, have I gotten in their head? And Baz was like, I think you have. Like, just calm down. You've got a floor final. Let's not pay attention here. I'm like shaking my nerves. I'm like, I think I might win. I think I'm going to win. And then eventually 8th man comes up, messes up, and I'm like, I'm going to win. Then it comes up and I'm in first, and I was like trying to calm myself. I was like, oh my God. I remember Baz come up and be like, we're not thinking about that now. You've got a floor final to do. And because I was so gassed and excited, I did mess up on my floor a little bit, but the whole moment, it's like a movie scene to me. As soon as I finished my floor, I was like, I don't care. I messed up my floor. I just become a European champion on pommel. Like, I've been working like 6 months for this, and I've done it. I've done exactly what I've come here to do. We're team champions. We've retained the pommel medal as well. Like, this is it. And I remember as soon as I finished, I was like, Baz, I'm out. I'm gonna go see my parents. Like, we ran around the whole stadium. Like, my mum and dad were just waiting. Like, It was mad. To be fair, that whole moment was surreal. And I remember just like it was like the biggest weight and the biggest emotional reaction I've ever had to a competition. And I think probably one of my favourite competitions I've ever had. And not just because of the accolades or anything like that, but because of how proud I felt of myself and the whole, no matter what that build-up looked like and how stressful it was for me, and always being, you know, given that maybe you're in, maybe you're not, no matter what I went through, I just kept on going forward. I just ploughed through it all the shite, all the, you know, the bias and all that crap that goes with it. I just did my gymnastics and I let that do the talking. I was so happy that I managed to do that. Yeah. And I come out the other side with exactly what I intended to come out with.
In that environment, Jay, like it is ruthless, right? You know, when when you're being told like it's between you and him, and you've got to go head to head, and like you know that like it's a lot of pressure, and you're like competing every day in training. Do you think that is almost like a required ingredient when it comes to success in an elite sport like gymnastics, or do you think it's possible without that? Because it's just always like that, isn't it? Like I don't know whether you can get around it or not. You know, I'm not sure. Like, ultimately, it's an individual sport, and we're trying to pretend that competing in a team. We are in a team, but you're going up by yourself to compete. Like, it's just you. It's nobody else. Yeah. Like it's very tough, isn't it? You know, when you look back now and then how your career panned out afterwards. Like up until you were a senior gymnast and then you retired, you know, do you see that as almost like, right, it's just an ingredient that exists within that like environment, and I'm not sure that you can take that out of it? How do you feel about that?
I do agree. I think finding another way is something that will take a long time. I do think that we can do things a lot kinder in the sport. I think that is true, and I don't think you should play off of another gymnast by saying, you know, like a lot of the time it was, you know, well, if he can do it, why can't you? You know, there's like a healthy competition I'm on board for, but it's when it's unhealthy and it starts getting like, you know, towards bullying because you can't do something or because someone else can, and you're like, you know, it's a form of manipulation that you're trying to get me to do something, or, you know, that I should do it this way, or I should listen, or I should act like that gymnast because he does this, or, you know, I think there needs to be a culture shift, definitely. I don't know how we do that. I think it's all language-based and stuff. But realistically, to be at the top, it's tough. You got to do things that make you uncomfortable. And competing against your teammates is naturally, 90% of the time is what you do, because we all compete for our clubs. And we only really get team competitions 3 times a year, where we're GB, realistically. So, I think when we're in a team mode, I can't speak for the boys now, but at the time when we were in a team mode, we were a team, we were a unit. As soon as that changes and we're an individual, no.
I always felt like once the team was selected, then I could get into team mode. Yeah. But until that point, I just can't, because it's still anything can happen, and it's me against you, and it's really hard. Once I was in a team, then I was like, yes, now I'm in, like I'm fully on board. But then again, as soon as that competition finishes, it's back to I'm looking after me again, because
a bit selfish.
That environment is a very ruthless environment, isn't it? And it's a strange thing that we have a team event, but it's just you going up there. It makes it very unique. I think that's why it's so exciting to like watch team finals and to like those dynamics of how does it fit together and like how do the pieces kind of fit together is really interesting. What was it like then, Jay, your second experience of competing at Junior European Championships when you're then 17, you're 2 years older, you're a bit more mature, you've grown, you're a lot bigger, and you're going in as the reigning pommel champion, you've got an opportunity to try and win again. How was your experience of that second European Championships?
Yeah, it was tough. It was a different kind of tough from the first one. Immediately, almost after that first Junior Euros, I had a bit of time out, a bit of time off because I'd really like heavily damaged my wrist from. I mean, I wonder why. All the pommel work. So I think I took like three or four, maybe even 6 months off at that point because my wrist was just battered. It was growth plates. Right. It was a bit of bone that had just come off, and it took me ages to get back from that to like. I'd obviously in that phase, I had gotten bigger. Puberty was starting to kick in. Like I'd gotten wider. My muscles started kicking in, I guess. And so the build up for the second Euros felt so much tougher because I was working around all these issues that I'd started getting. I'd started getting injuries. I'd started getting more niggles that were becoming more of an issue. And confidence had been knocked a little bit through my wrist being injured. You know, my pommel was what I was getting known for. Everyone was starting to understand that I was the pommel worker. I was a junior European champion. People were looking out for that. And so I thought I had this mission to become pommel champion again, and therefore I needed to step it up or whatever. And I was concerned the whole build up, the whole 2 years in between, that I wouldn't get back to it. So the majority of the second Junior Euros build up, it was quite similar to the first one in that it was, again, I wasn't like, they weren't saying that I was guaranteed to go. They were like, it's likely you'll go, but you still need to prove yourself. So I'm like, damn man, what do I need to do to prove myself to these people? Obviously been through an injury, but again, the trials were weird. The whole experience was very odd for me. I started to notice patterns of, I'm going to say what it is as far as I'm concerned, a lot of patterns of cheating. A lot of patterns are biased. So this Junior Euros was just really odd. It was a really odd experience for me. I'm also an all-rounder, but for some reason, 2 Euros in a row, I'm not put up for all-round. I'm taken out because of, some bullshit excuse of my P-bars not being, I remember this conversation, my P-bars not being up to scratch or whatever, when it's, in my opinion, absolutely fine. And then, there was the one last competition that we did before it, and probably my best that I did, and I still somehow didn't come out. As far as I'm concerned, there was a lot of mess ups from the team, our team, and I somehow still didn't win, or something was just a little bit weird with my scores, right? I ended up going anyway. It was a good Junior Euros. It was a really good Junior Euros. It was a solid team, a really good team of boys. We had an expectation that we were going to win. We did win. We had a few mess ups. I fell on pommel, and it was our last piece, and that felt rough. That did. I didn't know what had happened there because I was like on form. I felt really good, but just one of those things that happened. I didn't really know how to process that because I was like, I've let everything down. I've let everyone down. My expectation was to win pommel, and now I've not even qualified. Like, my spot in the team is just now useless. I'd qualified for a floor and a vault final, which was quite nice for me because I was like, I was going for a floor and a vault final as well. I managed to come second on floor, which I was quite happy with. Obviously, we wanted to win, but Johnny had a very special routine at that point, so I can't deny him the win. I nearly broke my leg on vault as well. Do you remember that? I did Yurchenko
really,
2.5.
mate.
It was a nasty straight leg basically in the final. I was just kind of all kinds of. I started to notice there was something shifting in the way I felt at competitions.
Right.
And I just felt on edge like the whole time I was at Junior Euros. I nearly bust my leg, but there was just a lot of weird things happening at that Euros. And that I remember coming off floor, and I was like, I've just got a silver medal on floor. Like, that's pretty decent. That,
yeah,
pretty happy with that. And I remember I started to feel really isolated and removed from a load of things like BG wise. In that, the media team was stood by the floor. And I remember like coming down, and they just interviewed Johnny or whatever, and I was like, stood next to them thinking they were going to interview me, and they just kind of looked and was just like, I was like, oh, okay, that's weird. And then that was it really. No one really spoke to me after that. Like, it was like communication just went dead on me. And this is where like things really started going quite strange in my gymnastics, in my career in general. Like, things started started happening that I was unaware of at the time, but very aware of now.
Were you still in Exeter at this point?
I'd moved to South Essex at this point.
What point had you moved to South Essex?
I moved in at the end of 2013.
And was any part of that because you were starting to feel like things were shifting and maybe being down in Exeter wasn't helping and you were seeing this kind of stuff go on? Or was it just you felt like, right, I need to be around, I'm the best athlete in the gym now, I need to be around athletes that are better than me?
It was a combination of two things. So it was that ceiling that I felt like I'd reached. I didn't have anyone to bounce off of. I had Dan, but it just wasn't what I felt like I needed at that time. And I know that sounds cocky, but it was realistic. My dad's job had changed as well, so he was based in Bracknell 3 days a week. So we were like, we're going to have to make a change here at some point, like for both our careers. So we looked at a couple of clubs, one of them being Huntingdon, and then one of them being South Essex. I think I looked at Loughborough for like a very brief period, but I made a decision to go to South Essex just because nothing wrong with Huntingdon. I always felt very welcome there. But I'd just come from a gym that's quite a small space, and I wanted to experience what a big open gym felt like with absolutely everything in it. Because I've never had that in Exeter. I had all the necessities, but not all the extra add-on bits. So, and obviously the coaches and stuff, they all come into play. I got on really well with all the boys at South Essex. I was already best mates with Bryn at that point. I knew Reece really well. I knew Max really well. Like, it was just a solid group of people who I was really comfortable with from the get-go. So that was like kind of why I decided to go South Essex, and it was very much it was a good location for everything. I was quite central to anything that I needed.
Did you find it hard to integrate into a new club, Jay? Because when I did that at 14 and went to Huntingdon, I felt like they were trying to stamp knots out of me, if that makes sense. Like, not in a bad way, and maybe not consciously, but even things like they would all train in like gym shorts and I'd train in big shorts because we were all like football fans in like knots. So we just all wear like footy shorts. So I'd wear United shorts and I'd be told, no, you got to wear like gym shorts. And then like we'd all like finish our tumbles at knots and like just be like dead like relaxed and lazy. And I'd get told off by Paul for not like landing properly, which I found like weird. And it was like that was my identity. Like, I grew up in that. I was very proud to be, but it didn't, and eventually I integrated fully, and and they all welcomed me in, and I became a massive part of like that setup and that team, and I fully bought into it. But it did take me a while to integrate into that, and I don't think I ever felt quite like one of them. What was your experience of like, you stayed at Essex a lot longer than I stayed at Huntingdon, but what was your experience of integrating into a new club when you've come from this small family kind of run community club type thing? And I'm sure they have that there as well, but you're going somewhere new. What was that like?
Yeah, it was definitely, I'd never thought about it until now, but it was definitely noticeable. I wouldn't say like, for me, it wasn't like stamping.
And that's quite a big, that's a big word, right? The way I've put that's probably not the right way. It wasn't trying to stamp it out, like, but it was kind of like, it was
conform to what we do. Yeah,
essentially.
Yeah, I did feel that to a certain degree, but for me, it was more like technique and stuff. Like the way I'd learnt stuff at Exeter was a little bit old school, so it was like updating the way I did things. I wouldn't say, and they were good changes. They were really, really solid changes for me, which it definitely like improved my gymnastics for the better. I suppose that the thing I felt the most isolated from was the language in Essex.
Right, okay.
It's just the way they say things. It's just so bizarre. But no, I felt immediately welcome. I think I really enjoyed the changes because I'd done things the same for so long. To experience a new way of doing them and a new environment to do them in, for me, I was like, this is great. Like, I felt sharper, and I was getting sharper at certain things. I think the main thing, like, I can relate this to would probably be twisting. It would just be like, me and Scott worked on that for so long. I've always been good at twisting, but me and Scott really refined it so that I was like the best I could have been at twisting, and those types of things were the things that changed. And as I got older, my gymnastics changed naturally anyway, with the styles and everything that we all went through, the stylistic changes that we went through. But yeah, it was a weird change going from a small club to a large club. The family aspect of it is still very, very present at South Essex. It's just, it feels like, because it's so big, it's almost like you don't get as close to other people physically and like like emotionally, right? But no, I always felt really welcome at that club. Always early doors. There was a man called Marius, and I was quite timid being there, you know, new boy and all that. Like at 17, it feels weird being the new boy, but he'd always welcome me, and he was like the one person I remember at that point making me feel incredibly welcome. Right, like I wasn't just the new kid. Yeah. He was just a nice guy, making me feel welcome at my club.
What was it like being, you know, essentially becoming another fish in a big gym of very talented, successful athletes, and you're training in a gym with Max Whitlock, right? The most successful British gymnast of all time, potentially one of the most successful Olympians of all time, depending on what the future holds, but I certainly think that. What was it like then going into that environment and being used to being top dog for 10 years, and now you're just one of the pack?
Yeah, I definitely shat myself for a good couple of months. Like anything I do, if I was trying something new or trying something I knew I could do and I was like messing up on it, I'd definitely like go into my shell a little bit because I'd be embarrassed to fail in front of these, you know, these bigger guys doing these harder things or whatever. So if I'd done like messed up something easy, I'm like, that's embarrassing. It took me a while to get adjusted to them, but realistically, no one really cared. That's the difference, is once you become friends and you insert yourself in that group, it's so good. It's so good because you become a unit of people that just work together, take the piss out of each other, but you know you get the job done, and yeah, it was a good environment.
I felt like from the outside, always looking in, the club at Essex were very good at making it's us against everyone else, and so we'll stick together, but it's us against, and that would be. You'd be able to notice that even in training camps. So there'd be times when you guys would just do your own thing and wouldn't do what we're all doing, or it wouldn't be lines or fast track and that. But you would stick together, but it's like, it's us. And we'll line up with everyone and then we'll do our own separate lineup.
Yeah.
There was that. I always noticed that. And it was like a thing, and I think it was done consciously. But it felt to me like you guys were always a very tight unit as a group, separate to the GB setup, and it was like, it's those guys up there kind of against us. I don't know whether that was like you guys felt that way, but from the outside, that's what it always kind of felt like.
Yeah, I never thought it was like, especially with you guys at the gymnastics, it never felt like it was like, oh, us against you. What it was is that, you know, if we're coming up to do a training camp, why am I doing things that I wouldn't do at home? Like, why am I doing fast track? I'd never do that at home. One, I'm not good at fast track. Two, for me, it doesn't benefit me. I'd rather get on the floor, do something like. So I think a lot of the time, you know, it would be you're men now, you're grown men. You can train how you want to train, as long as you don't be stupid. Train how you want to train. You don't have to conform to what they do. And none of us really, if I'm being honest, if one of us wasn't going to do it, the rest, like as a club, the rest of us had to not do it, because then you just look like a dick not doing it, right? It's a little bit. But as a team, it was kind of like, well, I don't want to do it. Bryn don't want to do it. Max doesn't really want to do it. We all just want to get in, do our stretching, do our training, and go for lunch. Yeah. It's not like an unsociable thing or whatever. Yeah. It was just more of a like, as far as I'm concerned, that's wasting my time in here. Like, I've got 3 hours to get my work done. I've got more important things to do than rolls, than fast track, than like straight front down the track. Like, I'd rather just warm up in half an hour and get cracking on P-bars and actually work on the things that I need to work on.
I remember around that time, around 2014, when you're talking about your experience at that second junior Euros, there being some friction. Because I remember having a conversation I remember saying to one of the national coaches, I need Max to be ready. So I need him to feel completely comfortable and to be ready to go up and do his pommel routine. I don't care how he does that or how he gets to that point, but as his teammate, I need him to feel completely ready to do his pommel routine. If that means he doesn't do the rolls and he does the other stuff, I don't care, because when we're in that pressure situation, I just need to have faith that he's going to put his hand up and do a good routine and he feels comfortable doing that. Yeah. But I did also feel like there were times where it was hard for us to, I think there wasn't us and a them type. There was a feeling of that. It was like, well, we've all got to do this. Yeah. And I don't get a choice. I've got to go and do the fast track and the lines and there was that element there, I think. Yeah. Like, it existed.
I do think because of that, I mean, naturally, right?
And I think it was more the coaches.
Yeah.
That was going on. Do you know what I mean? There was a friction there.
They didn't like that we decided that we weren't doing it, right? And I think that that's what caused a little bit of like stigmatism around South Essex, is that they do what they want, they don't conform, and it wasn't that we didn't want to do what they wanted to do because it was their choice. It was just we just wanted to do our training. Like it wasn't anything like we weren't being arsey or anything like that. We just wanted to do our training.
Yeah.
I don't do any of this stuff. So for me, I don't find it beneficial, and I don't see why. Like, it doesn't help team bonding. That was my opinion. That it doesn't help team bonding really doing backward rolls and stuff. And I remember having a conversation with someone, and like they were like, "Why don't you do it?" And I was like, "I don't do it at home. So why am I going to do it here?" Also, like it really hurts my neck. Stuff really hurts me. Like why? Like I'm not just going to do it because I'm at squad.
Yeah.
I just want to train. I just come here to train with a group of people, not to be asked to do things that I don't normally do.
Yeah, I think I completely understood it from like a technical point of view and performance. I think because everybody else, we all had to do it, it came across as they're being prima donnas.
Yeah, it definitely caused tension. We all knew that.
Yeah.
Like everyone knew, because we'd
like,
see you guys kind of walk
just
up.
do it?
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah, I know. Because I was at the time, I was very much in that mindset, because I am a people pleaser. So I'd see it and I'd be like, but we should just go and do it, man. We're rubbing them all up the wrong way. Like this will bite me in the arse.
Yeah,
it will, and it did.
Yeah,
like it did several times. It bit all of us on the arse, because they thought, what you think, like we were just being prima donnas just because we had the option to say no, and we'd say no, like we're just being bratty little kids. But
what was that transition like into becoming a senior, Jay? And at what point did you have your quite serious injury?
Almost immediately turned into a senior.
Yeah.
So I'd just finished that Junior Euros, and after that it was Commonwealths had just been done, and I was gearing up to go Worlds or do the Worlds trials and stuff. So effective immediately, senior routines. I'm getting ready right off the back of Junior Euros within a couple of months, and it was looking good. I was like, I think I'm going to do well at this Worlds trial. Like Scott was looking like really pleased with everything. He was like, yeah, we're going to smash this. So we started integrating senior skills, right? So on floor, it was rollout for me. I was, as far as I'm concerned, I was great at rollouts until I wasn't. And yeah, that was the start of 17. I don't think I was 18 yet. Yeah. Or maybe I just turned 18 and got too cocky, got too confident with my rollout. And my first major injury was my elbow. So I did rollout, to Tuck Thomas rollout, and I just tried too hard, and I just landed on straight arms. And I just remember, I remember that god awful crunch. It just, and I felt it go through my body. As I stood up, I was like, oh, what was that? And I kind of looked at it, I remember all the panic that set in, that you get that ringing in your ears when you've really hurt yourself. And I stood up and I was like, Scott. He thought I'd broken my neck because obviously I'd just collapsed onto the mat. And I remember looking down, I had this cylindrical disc popping out of my elbow, in my forearm, and I was like, oh my God, what is that? What is that? And I thought as far as I was concerned, I thought I'd just shattered my arm because of the force and everything, my full body weight plus whatever gravity was going on at that point for me. So yeah, elbow was my first major injury. As far as doctors were concerned, they weren't entirely sure if it was going to go back to normal. I'd snapped everything more or less off of this bone, tendons, ligaments, you name it, it'd all come off, and then the same on the top, plus all the bone bruising and stuff that went with that. So I had to have reconstructive surgery. First, anyway, before I had reconstructive surgery, I had a doctor tell me that I'd never do full contact sport again. He was like, nah, you'll never do that again. And then they also discovered that I'd broken both my wrists at some point. They're like, oh, you broke your wrist today? I was like, no. Like, oh, well, your wrists are broken at some point. Anyway, yeah, so I had reconstructive surgery through a specialist through BG. So my treatment for that was phenomenal, and they'd never seen anything like it. They were like, that's probably one of the worst elbow injuries I've ever seen. The surgeon who'd seen it, he was like, it looked like a bomb had gone off in there. The level of damage was so bad. So I got two plugs drilled into the bone, everything's back in. I remember was never sure how bad it was until the morning of my operation. And I was like, I know it's bad, but I don't know how bad. And I leant over and I just felt my elbow just fall out of the joint. Leant down, just felt it go out. And I was like, wow, okay. So that was on paper the worst injury I've had. And that took about 1.5 years to get back from. I want to say like fully. Well, it would have been 1.5 years. It took me 1 year to get back, and I eventually got all full strength back. They told me I'd never straighten my arm again. Probably like it would probably be maximum like that angle, whatever. You know, months and months of rehab, like hammering it, because I knew that I was never going to do gymnastics with one bent arm or one straight arm. So I worked really, really hard at making sure that this was going to be not an issue for me. I worked my absolute bollocks off with this rehab, and it was horrible. Every aspect of that rehab was horrible because it was painful. It was how much do we do through this joint in our sport?
Yeah,
it's like everything pretty much goes through your elbows and your wrists and your shoulders. So it was like I really found a way to do gym. I had to relearn how to do gymnastics in a different way again. You know, sorry for swearing. I had to. I relearned how to twist on floor because I did one arm round off for like 1 year whilst I was out. Like I competed doing one arm round offs into like 3.5 punch and 2.5 punch off one arm, triple twist off one arm. So I had to I really adapted to everything. And I wasn't going to let it affect me.
Mm-hmm.
I've had stupid amounts of injuries through my career. Like that just happens to be the worst. And I broke my teeth as a kid, broke my nose twice doing double front. I cracked my cheekbone, cracked the bone in my foot, broke my hand. Like it's the list is so long. This one was just particularly awful. And then my senior career was, it was going all right once I come back from the elbow. I'd done all the rehab, done all the work. Again, World's Trial was coming up. And a year, almost 3 days to the year anniversary of this, my Achilles had been kicking up a fuss for about a month from all the floor work that I've been doing because of, my elbow injury and stuff. And I remember Eddie had come down to watch us for the day because trials were coming up. And I come in and Scott was like, "Oh, what are you going to do floor today?" And I was like, I don't know. It's been about 4 weeks since I've done floor because this Achilles has got tendinopathy and it's proper bad. I was like, I don't know. I'll see how I feel. I might give it a go. He was like, I think it would be a good idea because Eddie's here. You show him, you've got to show him some routines, so you can see what you're looking like for Worlds. And I was like, all right, cool. So I'm warming up on floor and I'm like, whoa, this is so painful. And he's like, do you reckon you can do it? And I'm like, probably. Yeah, I'll get on with it. Like it's only one day. And I remember I looked at, I think it was Skinny. Stood in the corner, I just turned around and Skinny and I went, my Achilles is going to snap on this guy. 2 seconds later, I snapped my Achilles. Well. Literally, I was like, wow, okay.
And was it, did it fully go?
Pretty much. It was like there was like a couple strands holding it, so it didn't go up my leg, thankfully, but it was fully torn from like, I think right to left or something. There's just like one strand holding it on. And I remember like, oh man, it's the most horrible sensation. It doesn't hurt. It's just awful because it just feels like you just go through the floor.
Yeah.
And I was doing 3.5. It was my first tumble and I just felt this, just nothing. Just in the air. I can't really remember what happened after that. I just know I landed on my face. And then obviously everyone come over and whatnot and they were like, oh no, I don't think it's snapped or whatever. And I was like, that is gone. That is absolutely gone.
When you look back, Jay, at that first injury and then, of course, the second one, I look back now at my ankle injury and, like, I couldn't let myself accept that at the time, but it wasn't that was it because I still went on and I had great success. And, look, even less than a year later, I went to a major championships and won a medal, but my potential to be the athlete I could have been was gone. There was a ceiling because of the injury and the restrictions I had with that. Do you look back at that first elbow injury and kind of think the same? Because after that, it's a massive uphill battle, right? And the injury to come at that time when you're transitioning into being a senior is almost the worst time for that to happen because if you don't come in and hit the ground running and make a mark straight away, the further you are from the success you had as a junior, the harder it is then to get on the team because the conversation comes about, well, he's not competed as a senior. He doesn't have the experience. How do we know that he's going to go up there and he's going to be able to put his hand up? So, and you'd come off the back of lots of successful juniors the ones that were the most successful that went on to have good senior careers, like hitting the ground running straight away at 17, 18, they're straight in the team.
Yeah.
And then they've got that experience, so that argument can't be used, and then they can push on. How detrimental is it having a serious injury like that as somebody that is 17, 18 transitioning into a senior?
Oh, mate, I think both those injuries, I know both those injuries ruined my career, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Or a factor of, having a huge impact on my career, because, one, the elbow was just a huge issue in terms of like general everyday pain. I could no longer, like, rings was just an issue. I'm not the strongest guy on rings. I got there in the end, but I couldn't do cross. Like, I couldn't do any of the strength moves because it was just so much pain in the elbow. So that took like 4 years after doing the elbow for that to finally be able for me to do. Things like high, but there were certain skills that I just couldn't do anymore because it just hurt so much, or my elbow would get caught, and it just. So, yeah, it definitely had an impact. But obviously, like you say there, in that you're injured and you're out the scene, you're out the picture. So I think that was the biggest issue I had, is that I was out the picture for nearly like just over 2 years, and then they just kind of forget about you. So working your way back in after an injury, and no one really had, like, I don't want to say sympathy. No one really had a lot of empathy, I feel like, for like the journey that I went on in those 2 years, because so much had changed. I'd just watched like all of my mates basically become successful, go to Worlds, go to Commonwealths, go to senior Euros and stuff, and I'm just sat at the back, like doing more rehab, or just knowing that like this next battle, if it goes well, is going to be like one of the hardest battles I'll have. And just the thought of hitting the ground running thing, I had no luck with it at all. Because even off the back of my junior Euros, like, I know that like no coach really spoke to me about any opportunities. It was just like I just had to go back to the gym, get my head down, work, and then prove myself through my gymnastics once again. And I just, I think I do remember doing the elbow and just thinking, like, fuck. Like, not even really that concerned about the level of the injury, just thinking, like, how long is that going to take me to get back? Yeah. Like, are they going to consider me again? Like, is this... And then as soon as I did my Achilles, like, my elbow, I was quite inspired to do the work on, do the rehab, get back as soon as I can, like, work hard, cautiously, but get back to full fitness. But the Achilles, as soon as I did that, that was kind of when I was like...
I can't do this again,
literally off the back of finishing my rehab, I was like, I don't think I've got this in the tank again. And then on top of that, it's not just my injury, it's people's perception of me and the judges and like people who haven't seen me in like over a year now doing my gymnastics. Like, I'm at the back of the queue for anything.
Yeah, and I guess because it's a performance-based sport, right? And at the end of the day, performance is like talk, and that's what determines the funding, and that determines the money that people get. The money in the system that then funds the coaches, so it's just driven that, it's built that way.
Yeah.
So if you are one of those injured athletes in a squad of 20 very talented, successful athletes, if you're one of the 4 or 5 that are injured at the time, you're just not in the picture.
No.
Like, you're over there, you do your job to get back fit, and then once you're back fit, then you come into the picture again, and you're involved. And
you're
it would be a case
excluded.
that when you're one of those 4 or 5, when someone gets back fit, you're like, they're back now, they're in there, and it was just, do you know what I mean? It's that's a very tough environment, isn't it? That environment.
I remember because we did a lot of grit weeks together, and you are like, you do a little bit of training, but you mainly do rehab, and they try and make you feel like you're part of the team, but you're not. No. At that point, you are like in the corner of a room, doing your exercises, doing your rehab or whatever. Like,
and you're of no use at that point to the system, are you? Because you need to be able to do gymnastics and perform. So at that point, it's just kind of you. And then the support team are great, like the sports science team. They're super important, and they are very, very good in supporting you in that situation. But it is a very challenging. How do you then, Jay, the next few years and the rest of your senior career? What year is the Achilles injury?
That was 2015.
2015. Yeah. So then the Olympic Games comes around in 2016. You're out of the picture for that. And then the next Olympic cycle starts, and it's like, okay, this can be my cycle. What are the steps, and what's the build-up look like to when we get to 2020 and we've gone into COVID, and at that point you're feeling very, I guess, you must have felt pretty fragmented from the system and had felt like you'd faced enough challenges to get to the point where you're no longer, chatting to you today, Jay, and listening to what you were like when you were junior, it sounds like you had a lot of self-confidence in your own ability. You were able to go out there. You were very confident when you were doing your performances. I was certainly struck by that from the start of our conversation. But then there seems to have been a shift around that 17 age group. And then how does that develop into summer 2020?
Yeah, I think after 2016, it was like we rebuild from here. We know I know I'm not going to Olympics. I know I'm not going to make that cut. So we rebuild. We do what we can for the next 4 years. We've got plenty of time. We just look after my body and my mind, because 2 years of injuries is shite. 2 years of rehab is rough. So we've got to figure out a new system of how we get things done. Those 4 years, or the leading up to 2020, were probably the hardest, because so many things came after that I personally wasn't expecting. I felt good in 2016. I felt like I was coming back to being like a confident gymnast. But then there was a shift in my mindset where I was then afraid. I started to notice that I started to become a little bit afraid of gym. I think a large portion of that is due to obviously the injuries, mainly the Achilles, because I got told that could happen at any given point, and I started to realise like how dangerous the sport was, and it did start to put fear in me. I started thinking like, is this worth it anymore? Can I carry on? Like, my body hurts all the time. I've had 2 major surgeries now, and 21, 20. So I don't know if I don't think my heart was in it after 2016, to be honest. 2017, 2018, 2019, I don't think I was fully in it. I had moments of being in it where I was like, yep, no, I'm back, I'm doing this. And then I had moments where I was like, I just don't know anymore. Like, I don't know if I want to do this, because it's a lot of naturally it's a lot of hard work. I don't know how much more pushing I can do after these 2 injuries, because mentally it just ruined me. And then the snowball effect of what happened after that, in terms of like, just my body just felt like it was failing me for like the whole time leading up to 2020, like just constant niggles, injuries, like got whiplash twice, like my bones started to hurt in different ways. And I remember having a conversation with my parents being like, I'm thinking about retiring, and the main reason, like one of the, like probably 20% of the reason, is because I just don't know if I can deal with this level of pain anymore. But I kept on plugging on. I always said that I wanted to at least give it my best shot. So I didn't get a good shot to 2016. I didn't get any shot really because of what had happened. But I always wanted to at least, shoot for an Olympics, give it my best run that I possibly could without as many roadblocks as I got. So that was like the mindset. We'll just take the next 4 years as it comes, see what happens. Get some World Cups, get some more competitions on my belt, and we'll build on my skills, because I'm 2 years behind everyone. And again, it wasn't really that easy. I'd say in 2019, I'd pretty much retired mentally. Like, I was like, I'm finished. In 2018 I'd say 2018 was my best year prior to this. And I remember it being a Euros trial. Do you remember the one where we went and watched the Euros as well afterwards? After our Euros trial, we then went and watched Euros.
Yeah, I remember. Oh, okay, right.
It was that one.
Oh, yeah.
So that trial was like my best trial ever.
Right. Okay.
I was on it. I was like, first time I'd come into a control comp at Lilleshall and just felt like.
This is 2018, right?
Yeah. 2018, yeah.
I remember looking around. We just had a Euros trial, and we were in the pub on a national training camp drinking, and I thought, this is a problem.
Yeah.
This isn't okay.
It was a problem, yeah.
People have just lost it. Like, it's like the kids have just been let loose. That wasn't okay. That for me, I was like, this would have been picked up 5 or 6 years ago, but there are athletes in this group that do not give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
This is a problem. This is, because that's never okay. You can't be on a training camp with a training session still to do the next day, and you're going out watching a football match, like drinking. Like, I remember looking around thinking, what is going on? Yeah. This is just mental. This isn't what I grew up in. This is not okay. And I think from that point, I I didn't feel like it wasn't what I knew. I didn't grow up with that. I didn't like it. It was, it
felt wrong.
Yeah, it wasn't right. And it was a lot of athletes feeling very disillusioned, not supported, didn't care anymore, was like angry at the system and the people involved with it. And I think a big group at that point had probably like retired and were retiring and were finished. And I can remember looking around thinking, I don't know about this. And I can remember feeling quite embarrassed and ashamed as an older athlete with younger athletes doing that as well.
Yeah.
Because they're then thinking this is normal or this is okay, and it just wasn't. And that carried on, actually. That carried on up until start of 2019 when just before I retired, and I remember being at a training camp in Germany, and last night, kind of before we left, like a big group of like younger, my neck was bad. We've been talking this week about my neck, but my neck was bad at that point, and I was quite ill, and I was sharing a room with someone, and I remember everybody went out and got absolutely levered, and came back there were coaches in a bar and gymnasts were bringing drinks to coaches, and I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
This is mental. This is wrong on so many levels. And I can remember just feeling like, this isn't me anymore. Like, I want to get away from this. I don't like it. It's not. Yeah. So that period of time was a very strange period of time, I think.
It was.
Yeah. Sorry to interject there, but I think it's quite important just for context of what was going on around that time.
Yeah, everything was very different. I think we were all very, I don't know, it was a weird mindset. It felt segregated, and it was just odd. But yeah, the trial was like my best trial ever. I remember, like, I really wanted to, fuck you with my gymnastics kind of thing. And I did. And this is where I really started listening to the language that people were using on me and the things that they were doing to me, where I started to feel very much like a single person. I didn't feel like a part of a squad anymore. I felt like I was being shoved out. And naturally, because I was being shoved out by external people. And I remember this trial feeling particularly excluded. Because for one, there was everyone else's group. There was the group that everyone was in, and then there was me. So it was like a whole group of people, and then I was going around by myself. And I remember a couple of things that were just really odd to me. There's one that I got, it was a control comp. I remember a judge that gave me a penalty. Just me, no one else. Just me gave me a penalty for taking too long through the bars, but I'm on my own. She gave me a penalty at a trial, and I was like, the fuck? Why would you do that? And then the same judge, come over and said, like, oh, didn't hold your manner long enough. I've been doing that since I was 7. I was like, I count to 5, like, whatever. And I just started to notice, like, where they could, they would take as much as they could off of me.
Who do you mean when you say they? Because when you
Judges, as far as I'm concerned,
okay,
I'm going to straight out say it the way it was for me. I got.
Why do you think that was? Do you think that, because people used to say to me, look, you get judged super harshly when you compete in Great Britain, and it's because Sergei's your coach, people don't like Sergei and all of this. And I just knew that was not a positive frame of mind to ever be in.
No.
So I was like, well, if I think that way, like, I straight away, like, that just can't, no, that isn't the case. Like, it's not. They'll judge, everyone will be judged the same, regardless. And then, even if I am then selected, I'll score well internationally. But I just, I found it hard to think that somebody would pick me out personally and judge me in that way.
Yeah.
Was that just coming from you, or do you think you were being fed that from other people as well, and that maybe played into that? Do you know what I mean?
I do think there were people talking in my ear that would say it.
Because my family would say it, and I'd tell them to shut up. Like, no, you're just biased because you love me.
Yeah.
You want me to do well, and then and if you're told that again, and I would push back hard on it. Sergei would say it, and I'd push back.
Yeah.
Like, no way, no, I just need to do a better routine.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think that was like productive to me to ever think that way.
I was absolutely in that mindset as a gymnast at that time, but I would reflect and I'd look at it and be like, I don't think I'm going crazy. I don't think I'm wrong, because there were so many instances where it happened to me, and I was just like, I'm so confused. Like, I truly am confused at this point. As a gymnast, I look at that and I'm lost. I'm not biased against myself because I am my biggest critic. So if anyone's going to judge me harshly, it will be me. However, I see that and I don't agree with it. And I remember for a very long period of time probably about 6 years not agreeing with the majority of my scores.
Right.
And I don't know what happened. I don't know what shift it was. As far as I'm concerned, it was from being, out of the picture for 2 years and then never getting fully back in. And I think a lot of people, for some reason, just didn't really like me.
Right.
If I'm honest, like a lot of people seemed to not like me. A lot of people hostile around me. I even had a judge that come up to me personally when I was in Australia that said, do you not think if you focused on your gymnastics a little bit more rather than your YouTube, you'd probably be a better gymnast and get better scores? A brevet judge said that to me whilst they were like a little bit tipsy. I remember like as soon as I heard that, I was like, right, okay.
Yeah. And that's not going to help if you already,
exactly, it's already in my head. So then a judge says that, and then it just, little things like the Euros trial where I'm like, I've done the best I can, and you've still mugged me off on at least one piece where they've given me a penalty or they've, come up to me saying like just bullshit in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it's because I was probably wanting to defend myself.
And was this ever communicated to you? Do you know, after these situations, was it ever like the judge would come and say, this is why we took this deduction, this is like, so it was, and do you think even if there was some level of communication, because I imagine that communication was taking place with the top 5 guys that were going to be on the team, right?
Yeah.
They were communicating all of that. But then if you're just trying to work your way back up, that's one thing. Being someone that's injured and you're trying to get back in, you lose kind of like the value you gain from being one of the top guys and having the judges support you and help you, and the coaches wanting to get things better, so they're going to communicate with you a lot more.
Exactly, yeah. I felt like very lost and isolated for a very long time. I didn't feel part of that team for a very long time, and it felt like people were making it like deliberately hard for me. And I know myself, and I know the way that I do things, and I know the way I operate, and I didn't really understand why the things that are happening were happening. But I look at them now and I'm like, oh, no, I was being isolated. I was being, dismissed in ways. I was being pulled away, and it's quite hard to think about now, because I think about it and I'm like, man, why? Why did I get treated like that? What for what reason? Like, what was it? Because I had a YouTube channel and I did my own thing, or like I try and think of all these reasons and I can't fathom why it was the way it was, right? But for me, there were definitely people who didn't like me. And I remember there were a couple of things, I'll be honest. I tweeted something at one point after a British that said, all we want is parry and clarity from the judges. So I remember I watched something.
When was that? Do you remember what year that was?
I think it was like, I've been 2015 maybe. Because I remember Lewis had tweeted something. I didn't know about this. Lewis had tweeted something about the judges because he was upset that he didn't win pommel against Max. He felt like he should have won. So he tweeted, I didn't know about this, and then I tweeted being like, all we want is parry and clarity. It wasn't even about me, it was about another gymnast that I'd watched. It was actually about a female gymnast that I'd watched fall like 3 times and still come out like in 4th, and I was like, that's ridiculous. How does that work? That's insane. I got suspended for that. I actually, I got suspended. I got suspended for like 2 weeks. Eddie
was that common knowledge or not?
No, Eddie come down to South Essex and was like, you've removed the tweet, haven't you? And I was like, yeah, I've removed the tweet. And he was like, right, well, we need to have a discussion about this. You'll be suspended. But, it's because there's a lot of English judges. You've now called them out for cheating, and you don't even know if they're cheating. I'm like, I don't even know they're cheating. You're joking me. I know they're cheating. I've been like, example, we've been sat in a room with a brevet judge who's told us to make friends with other judges so that they reward us on the day where we might not have our best day. Openly said that in a meeting. And I was like, and you're coming here and telling me that judges don't cheat? And you're upset because I've just outed everyone. And now I've been suspended because of what I've witnessed and what I've actually called out, openly called out. So I think from that moment, I didn't help myself. Yeah. I'll be honest, I didn't help myself by calling out judges, the people who define how
You're
well I do.
You're quite young to be doing that too, right? In 2015, yeah.
I didn't care. I want the sport to change. I still want the sport to change. I just don't know how to do it. And I'm so far removed. I don't really want a part of it, but I do.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I love it, but I hate it. I hate the experience I had towards the end. Yeah. I'm very resentful towards that. I miss it. I discovered this recently. I really miss it, but I'm very resentful to the things that I experienced. And as far as I'm concerned, I experienced a lot of cheating and a lot of bias. And
then we get to 2020, the summer of 2020, and obviously you retired at this point, Jay.
I was, yeah.
So you're retired already at this point, so you've had some time to reflect. You've said that like you were resentful towards that period at the end, and I can completely understand why when you listen to the context of the journey that you went on. and the Me Too stuff comes out in terms of the Athlete A documentary in America. Then there's lots of conversations around the system in the UK, particularly on the women's side. You then decide that you're going to share your story and your experience in like men's gymnastics. You're one of the very few to do that. What led to you deciding to do that? And also just for people listening, what does that process look like? Because there can be some very persuasive journalists that can, you know, I'm sure tell you that I want to share your story and I want to tell it in your way and I'm going to give you the platform to do that, and potentially put a microphone on somebody and then they can ask you whatever they want to and steer you in a certain direction. And I think at that time, I didn't like the way in which lots of young athletes under the age of 18 were being put in front of the camera, not knowing what way that conversation is going to go and not being in control of what comes out on the other side in that narrative. Just tell us about your experience of that.
So, I mean, I wanted to come forward with it because I'd seen it all happening. I was like, you know what, this is the time. Maybe if I do it, I'm going to accept that me doing this is me blowing up my career. Like, I was kind of like, I am retired, but maybe I'll step back in. And this is the moment where I was like, if I do this, I'm done. I know I'm done. I can't really return to it. So it was terrifying. But when it come to the interview was fine. They weren't like swaying me. They'd asked the questions that were, you know, relevant to the story. The issue I found and that I had was that the post-production side of that thing, that interview, my experience was it came out so bad for me. I personally, I don't like that interview. I'm really not keen that it came out the way it did because it wasn't what I wanted to say. I didn't fully know what I wanted to say at that point. I just knew that I needed to, you know, say something to support everything. And, you know, for our side of gymnastics. So, I mean, I got death threats. I got hate for people calling me a wimp, like, because they edited it in a way that was, it was so different from the interview. Like, it was horrible. And then...
How long was the original conversation? And what did that get cut down to, Jay?
It was about 10 minutes, got cut into about a minute and a half, I think. But I didn't say what I wanted to say because the issue is that we were trying to talk about the inequality and I started speaking about an injury. And what I wanted to actually speak about was my level of treatment from one of the directors. Like, that was what I wanted to share, was the issue that I had with the director who, like, you know, shoved me out. But I never got to say that. So I think a lot of people got confused and I got a lot of backlash for the way that I, you know, put that across. I think I even reached out to you because I was like, I feel like everyone is so angry with me for my interview. One, because it didn't come out the way it should have. And two, because I just sounded like I was soft almost, you know, it wasn't.
It was very interesting because it must have felt, you must have been very surprised. There were a lot of people that were coming out and sharing their stories, right? Particularly on the female side of the sport. And they're being supported massively by the community. Yeah. You come out and share your story and it's almost the opposite. And I heard people say, I've listened to that interview that he's done and I don't believe him, and it just sounds like he's moaning and he's jumping on the bandwagon. And I can remember thinking, God, we've got like an issue in this country at the moment with like trying to encourage like young men to talk about their issues, and we're literally doing the complete opposite and like pushing this guy back down again. You know, like that must have been. I felt like I was concerned for you. I was like, God, that's tough. How do you handle that? You've just been brave enough to come and like share your experiences, and actually the reaction you're getting is the complete opposite to pretty much everybody else.
How
much of that do you think was also people being potentially worried you were opening Pandora's box in a way?
No, I think that was a large portion of the problem. I shared a 1% snippet of the treatment within men's gymnastics, right? And I can't compare it to the women's. I can't compare my experience to theirs. And I think, it ruffled some feathers for sure, because it was like, it wasn't, you know, the biggest story to share at that point. But my God, do I have so much more in the tank that I can share. That will be incredible.
Do you think it came across as like someone being just bitter and resentful and was just going for it?
Because I was.
And you were, yeah. And do you think it was an accurate reflection of just how you were feeling? Yeah. And maybe what you should have done was, because I remember what I did, you know, when I had a conversation with Sam, I stopped, took a breather, waited, and I'd seen the way that people's stories were being told
Yeah.
in the media, and I thought, don't like this.
Yeah.
I'm going to do my own thing. It can be as long as I need it to be, and then I'm completely in control of my narrative. And I actually, that's when I learned the lesson of how important it is to be in control of your voice and what you're saying and your story.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish I'd taken that approach. I wish I could take it back.
You're still quite young, right? You're still quite young at that time.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's very honest of you also, mate, to say that and to be very honest about the way you felt about that conversation, that interview now. I think it's a great opportunity for people to get to listen to this, because there'll be people that listen to this podcast that also did jump to that conclusion when you came out and you spoke about it like that. Yeah. And I have to say, it's not like anybody supported you. From the men's side, nobody stood up and went, yeah, he's like telling the truth. Even the likes of people like me and anybody else, I think everybody was still very fragmented. Do you know what I mean?
They were still
afraid. Weren't together. Whereas on the women's side, they were a bit more. On the men's side, everyone's kind of, well, was it bad? Is it good? I'm not sure. Some people were still very much in it. I think that makes it difficult when you're still competing. You know that the games that are getting played here, and it's very hard. You have to be a very brave person or have an incredible amount of leverage to be able to use that and still kind of get away with it, you know?
Yeah, I could understand that as well. Like, I understood why. At the time, I was quite level-headed with it. It was hard. But I do remember being like, right, none of the boys are going to text me. No one's going to say anything to me because they can't. Can't jeopardise anything that they're going. They also all think that I'm going to directly impact their funding, their livelihoods. Like, I have potentially done that as well. So I had a level of understanding of what I'd just potentially opened up and done for them. And I think a lot of them were probably, a little bit mad at me for doing it. But it wasn't the story I wanted to share at all, because the story that I experienced was just undeniably just being bullied by one man through the whole experience. So I wish I'd done it differently. I don't really know what else to say about that moment, because it was a year of.
I don't think you're supposed to be able to handle that at that age, are you? You're not. It's a lot. It's too much.
And with like, I just had my family behind me the whole time, really, and I wanted to. I feel like I've been laying low for the whole time, because I feel like the majority of the gymnastics community just hates me, especially on the men's side. And whilst I'm like, I've kind of got over that. And I'm like, you know what? If they want to, they can.
Do you know when you say that? Because I think it's quite important. Like when you do say the gymnastics community, like who are you referring to? Because I think it's quite important that we're specific with it. Do you know what I mean? Like other athletes, other coaches, judges, performance staff.
All of the above. All of the above. Yeah. It was very quick to cut loose from people, and naturally with leaving the sport, a lot of people don't talk to you anymore.
Yeah, I mean,
right? That's the way it goes.
I've not seen you for years. Like, it's very rare unless you make the time. Life gets in the way, isn't it? And so you just end up you can feel quite isolated. But especially if you've had the experiences that you've had, and I think you've then come out and spoken and been in many ways like chastised for that. Like that, you're gonna feel like unsupported. And, but I know there are lots of people that like support you and are good friends with you, and like
Yeah, I'm not denying that.
Especially like in terms of athletes that I know.
Yeah. But
I don't think we're very good at reaching out to support each other.
No,
I think we're very bad at that as well.
We're shocking at it. I don't text many people just to say that I'm having a rough day. Like, I'll just be silent and expect them to know. Do you know? I was just thinking. Do you mind if I actually just explain to everyone like the actual bullying that went on, as far as I'm concerned, just so that like I want to get this as a clear picture, so that everyone knows that. I don't know why I feel like I need to explain myself, but it's an opportunity that I feel like I can. So like, no one knows why I retired really. Everyone just kind of assumed that I just kind of fizzled out. I didn't announce retirement. I didn't do anything about it, because I felt like, one, no one really cared anymore about my gymnastics. Like, it's very obvious that no one really misses or cares about my gymnastics. But the real reason why I pretty much retired was because, do you remember James Thomas?
Yeah.
Yeah. That man was probably 70% of the reason why I retired. Because in 2018, he come on board. He was a very shady man. You remember with the contracts? When we first experienced our contract.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh yeah, I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of a new contract. There was like a booklet. So from the get-go, he was very shady. He was very weird with me in particular. And Eddie goes out. James steps in. new APA cycle starts coming up, right? So end of year APA changes. I get my APA letter through and my funding's gone down. But the last meeting I had with Eddie before he left was that it was staying at the same D level. I was staying there until I think the next year or whatever. I get it through and it's, it's changed. So I send an email and I'm like, just so that I'm aware, my funding wasn't supposed to change. Like a nice email saying, I don't understand, like it's quite a nasty letter to get through just before Christmas as well, that my funding's just been dropped with no warning. Can someone explain this to me, please? I get an email back from James and he's like, yep, as per Eddie's wishes, we've lowered your band of funding due to your last APA meeting with him. And I was like, okay, well, that's not true. I don't remember the exact emails, but being like, okay, well, the last meeting I had with Eddie was actually him informing me that my funding wasn't going to change. So if there's some communication that's been lost there, would I be able to get the minutes to the meeting because Vicky's been watching or sitting and doing things? So I completely ignored that line of the email and was like, I'll see if I can fix it for you. Hold on, because we've applied for it now and UK Sport have given you this level of funding, so it's going to take some work to get it fixed. And I was like, okay, cool, well, as long as it gets fixed, as per like what me and Eddie discussed, I'd like it to say the same. And he was like, yeah. Like a couple of months go by and I'm not being paid because I'm not signing that contract until I get my funding changes. I see him in one of our drug testing meetings, go up to him and I'm like, hey, James, like, is there anything, you got any updates for me? Like, because it's been like 2 months now, I've had no funding, I'd really like an update if that's all right. And he was like, yeah, no update at the moment. We're still in talks with them about appealing it. But if you just sign the contract and take that money till June, then we'll get you sorted after that. And I was like, I don't want to sign that contract if that's all right with you. Like, I'd rather wait till my funding gets sorted. And he was like, but then you're not going to get paid. I was like, can you backdate the payments then that you're going to owe me at that level of funding that I've been promised? And I remember just seeing his face just go, yeah, sure, we can do that. And immediately I just noticed his demeanour towards me had completely changed. I was like, what the fuck? And then like a couple more months go by and we're emailing back and forth. I'm checking. I'm like, is everything all right? What's going on with the funding? I've got like, no money at the moment because I've got no funding. And he's like, yeah, we're still in talks, still trying to fix it or whatever, being like really weird with me. He's also, at this point, he's telling my coach that he's tried calling me several times. He's never called me once. He said, I've got 2 missed calls. I've got no missed calls from him. I've tried calling him, straight to voicemail. Start adding pieces together. I'm like, this is really weird. Like, he's lying to Scott about him calling me and me not answering. I'm emailing him, keeping communication. I'm being quite nice because I don't really want to be rude. And he's just like constantly lying about little things that just don't make sense to me. And I'm like, this is so weird. Like, first of all, you've said as per Eddie's wishes to lower my funding, and I know full well that's a lie. Then you're saying that you've called me and you've not called me, and you're trying to make me look a fool or something. I don't know what your mission is here, but you're clearly tripping up over your own lies at this point. Eventually, back and forth emails. By like 6 months in, where the new funding starts, he's like, I've got it sorted for you. Sends me the email through and I'm like, oh, great. Email immediately. Thanks so much, James. Really appreciate you sorting this for me. It means a lot. Get the back payment as well, or the backdate payments. I'm like, yes, finally sorted. Thank you so much. Go in the gym, go to train. And Scott comes up to me and he's like, James just called me. And I was like, or texted me. I was like, oh, right, yeah. He was like, have you not emailed him back? And I was like, yeah, pretty sure I have. I said, thank you. And he was like, oh, he told me you haven't said thanks to him or said anything to him. And I was like, what? All right. I was like, okay. Middle of my training session, I'm like, all right, I'll send another email. I was like, oh, thanks for sorting that funding. And he was like, yep. Even though it was Eddie's last wishes, that you would stay on defunding, these are not mine. So within 6 months, we are going to review your APA again. And if you don't reach your targets, you will be off squad. And I was like, wow, savage. Like, properly savage, like out of nowhere, like just really savage. And then he wouldn't turn up for any of my APA meetings, actively avoided me. There was another set of emails that were just fucking weird. So there was a Euros in Glasgow and we all got tickets to it. And I remember you had to send an email to get these tickets. So I sent an email to the necessary person like 2 days before. I was like, I'd like these tickets. Cool, yeah, your tickets are reserved. And then I was like, actually, like a week later, I was like, I can't make it. Other commitments have come up. Sorry about that. If you give my tickets to someone else, more than happy for that. They're like, yeah, sure, no worries, thanks for letting us know. And then another email comes through like 20 minutes later. It's like, actually, James said that you didn't apply early enough for these tickets, so you didn't have tickets in the first place. And I was like, what? Again, what? I've emailed, I've been clear, and all of a sudden you're now... You imagine if I'd gone up and they're like, you don't have tickets. Yeah. And it's like, because James... Like, realistically, I could no longer focus on my gymnastics because this man was rattling me constantly. Just doing weird stuff. It put me on edge all the time. I felt weird at squads when I'd see him, and like it was such a bizarre time for my gymnastics, and even like my APA meetings with him were just like, he was like, give me my targets. And I remember you said this about your targets for your like last year of APA were just like impossible. Constructive dismissal is how I'd view those APA.
My target was to score 84, and nobody had scored 84 in that whole cycle. I was like,
that's what I got. That's exactly what I got. What? It was like score 84 at the British. I think
the British was one with like 81. I was like...
Yeah, I got the same. I think I got roughly like a similar one. It was like score 84 or 86. And I was like, fucking hell. Like at the British that year, no one scored it.
Yeah.
Like Joe won it, and he scored... I don't know what he scored, but he definitely didn't score that. And I was like, okay, so that's unachievable. And then it was to medal at World Cups. And I was like, okay, that's cool. I can do that. I was like, how many World Cups are you going to give me? They're like, we'll give you one. I was like, one World Cup.
Yeah.
I've got 3 months to sort my APA out, like to hit all these targets. You give me one World Cup. I was like, you got to give me more than that. He was like, no, I'm not going to give you more World Cups than that. I was like, why? But I need... competing for me is a skill. I need to do more to get better at it, right? So give me more opportunities and I can prove myself. And he was like, no, we're going to give more to the juniors. Absolutely no one went to any other World Cups. He just sent me to one. And as soon as that World Cup was done, he was like, I'm not sending you to another World Cup. And then British comes around. And
that's interesting, isn't it? Because, I mean, his role is he sits right above all the... It's nothing to do with the coaching team or the gymnastics. And
no.
Yeah, I can understand why that experience, particularly when they're... it's playing around with your money and the communication is very confusing and it's strange and it's odd. That massively, it makes sense now. I think it was very important who you point out who that person is as well, because people will listen to this and they'll try to guess who the person is. So I think it's very, very important that you did that too, mate. And what a very difficult experience, but one that's not unique to you. I imagine if you spoke to enough athletes, they'd probably have a similar... Myself, I was given that very high target. I remember I went to a World Cup, I came fourth in an A World Cup. That was technically...
That was
technically criteria, that was criteria, but it didn't pan out that way. And it's kind of... It gets like that at the end for a lot of people, I think, because you were on your way out and... it's trying to be justified, and I get it, right? You've got new athletes coming in, it's like a conveyor belt every year, and it's performance-based, but you hope that the way that messaging and communication is delivered is in a way where you're treated like you've been valuable to the system for 20 years. Like, let's make sure that we look after this person if they are going to transition out.
Yeah.
Because I don't think it takes a lot to make someone feel valued. It's actually small little things. But thank you for explaining that, mate. It makes a lot of sense. Your career... when I did some research for this conversation and I was looking at your junior gymnastics, it's beautiful. Beautiful gymnastics, man. And I think actually you can sit down and go, well, was it because I didn't do this enough, or I wasn't this way, or my mindset wasn't quite as good and I didn't have enough self-confidence like these guys? But actually, sometimes you have to go... Those injuries, man. Those big, serious, massive injuries play a massive role. It doesn't matter. You can have the best sports science teams in the world, but sometimes it's very difficult to get back from them if you've taken such a considerable amount of time out of the sport. So I think the fact that you did continue and you continue to do great gymnastics, and I hope one day you're able to find that closure and, see it for what it was and maybe get to the point where you can accept the good and the bad, but the good outshadows the bad. I think that's where I've got to myself. And I think some other athletes that are maybe at the age that I'm at, so a little bit older than yourself, have got there. And when other things in their life have come in, like now you've got a great life, great partner, right? You've got lots of things going on. You've built another career after gymnastics. Hopefully at that point you can see, wow, I learned so much and I've used that now in the next chapter of my life. And there were some massive positives, and actually they do outshadow the negatives. It's not that you ignore them, you accept them.
Definitely.
Yeah, I hope that's what I want for you, mate. And I'm glad that you've been able to share that as well. It sounds like you needed to do that. So hopefully you go away from today feeling like I don't want you to go away from today feeling like you did after that interview that you did, in 2020. I want you to go away today feeling like, no, I got what I needed to off my chest. I explained myself, and I think it's been great. Look, this has been one of the longest episodes we've probably done, but
sorry about that.
I think no, it's great, mate. I think it was important to tell all of that context of your journey through gymnastics so that people can understand that, and that hopefully will help people understand your story.
Yeah. I feel like I never got to tell it, and I never knew kind of where and how I'd do that. But like you said, I definitely have the last month, I'd say, I don't know where it's come from, I've had, that moment where I've been clear and I'm like, I don't hate gym. I actually really miss it. I really miss all the experiences I had, the camaraderie, the teammates, the experiences, the trips, all of the, I realise it's a privilege to feel pressure, and it's also a privilege to be an athlete, to live a life where you solely, all you do, you wake up, you eat, you train, you sleep. That is beautiful, because normal life, as good as it is, semi-stress-free, isn't the grass ain't greener. It really isn't.
Yeah.
Being an athlete is a phenomenal thing to be.
It's just
it really
an amazing life to have lived.
Yeah.
And a massive privilege. Jay, just to finish then, lastly, mate, just tell us a bit about your life now, what you're doing. Obviously, every now and then you post YouTube videos. I always watch them. Just tell me, about your life now, what you're up to. And then I guess, you just your hopes for the future moving forward now.
So I'm now exclusively, freelancer, freelance camera operator, cameraman, editor, post-production editor, photographer, anything in a media industry. I've been doing it for 7 years now. And it's really starting to open up now. So for me now, I do a lot of TV. I do a lot of live TV coverage. My life is starting to form in a shape that I really enjoy. I've got so much free time with what I do. I'm not, I don't work all the time. I love this new industry that I'm going into. I've got all the old skills and all the old knowledge from my gymnastics career, my work ethic. So, this new career that I'm building, it really excites me. I feel like I'm moving in a direction that's going to build a life that I really enjoy and that I love. My partner, she's phenomenal as well. I'm building this relationship, this beautiful woman and a baby boy. And it's really changing me for the better. I'm seeing things very differently now. I'm becoming a person that I'm really enjoying. I'm starting to discover I really love who I am at the moment.
Mate, that's amazing. Thank you very much for sharing your story. It's been a pleasure to spend a bit of time with you and also learn about your story, and hopefully people enjoy it. I'm sure they will. And like I said, mate, there are plenty of people in the gymnastics community that think an awful lot about you. Quite a few of them are around this area where we are right now. Thank you, mate. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for your gymnastics. When I went back and watched that beautiful junior gymnastics, mate, it's amazing. Especially that pommel work, but even the floor work, high bar, just the way you did gymnastics was beautiful. And I think for someone to come from a small place like Devon and then to have gone on to do what you did, it's amazing. And I hope you're able to look back and be very proud of your career. So thank you, mate. Top
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.